The Volumio Motivo. This is a premium price streamer, so that's how I'm going to review it today. Some of this might come across harsh, but this isn't like the Weem Ultra where you're paying around $300. At that price point, you accept some compromises as the general value is so high. The Volumio Motivo coming in at $1,849 and being their flagship product needs to perform as such because the waters are lurking with predators well below this price point and they're just waiting to grab some of these potential customers. I made a lot of notes as I reviewed this product. It's been one that I've had in for several months. It's been in and out of my setup several times, so I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on its capabilities as well as its faults. So let's start with the design. Should we call it the design or more like where do I put this? My general unboxing revealed the design that was like no other that I've had in. My first thoughts were all about the placement really. I was thinking I could put this right next to me at my seating position. It's a large 8-inch touchscreen and we'll get all the great track info that Volumio provides. Then reality of course set in and the thought of running cables across my floor for a setup like this, it just wasn't going to happen. But how else are you supposed to see it? It really made me think, what was the intention here? Should this live on the top of a cabinet where it can live out its days as a transport streamer, never really taking advantage of the screen, no one really seeing it? Or should I bring this over to my desk where I can see and use the screen without ever having to reach for my phone or even my tablet? Plus it has a reputable headphone amplifier, so this one almost begs to be placed on your desk, it feels like. I kept it on my desk for the first couple weeks and really forced myself to dive into the Volumio OS, avoiding using my phone for any control like I would normally do. There's so many products out there with touchscreens right now, but who's actually using them beyond the initial setups? I wanted to find out how usable this was, and really that takes me to the screen itself. The screen on this one is actually pretty large. It's an 8-inch touchscreen, so it's certainly big enough to read at your desk. The angle works, but it still feels like you sort of need to sit really close to it to take advantage of it. And at the very least to be able to read any of the artist info that displays on the right side here. I actually do like the slanted design here, but I think it could have been taken maybe a step further with a more aggressive angle so it could be viewed easier without the tendency to feel like that you have to sort of look over the top of it to get a clean view on it. Another option could have been something like an included stand with this one, so you could either lay it flat like this or be able to stand it vertically. And that would have really opened this up to both desktop use as well as the user who wants to actually view this from a seating position beyond a foot away from it. As for the screen, the colors are good. It's easy to read, even some of the smaller text that's used for artist info. You likely won't be reading any of that if it's more than a few feet away, but it's there if you're close by on a desk. As for the touchscreen performance, it's in line with other touchscreens on audio streamers such as the DMPA6. Do not expect to come into this and have something like an iPad-like experience with the touchscreen. It just won't. None of the streamers I've had come in have anything close to that type of experience. And generally why I stick to controlling these devices with either my phone or my tablet. Wrapping the screen up, it looks good, performs as expected, but leaves you a bit conflicted. A tablet-like device without the performance or convenience of a mobile device with all of its connections it requires. For myself, if it's on my desktop, it's good to go. I can easily use the Motivo as is. If I'm using this in my audio rack, without a doubt, I'm going to be controlling it from my phone or tablet, which really isn't unexpected. Externally, controlling these is going to give you the best experience on all of the recent streamers. I operate the Eversolos, the Weems, the Blue OSs, all of those the same way. Now let's do a quick dive into the Volumio software itself. First of all, I want to mention the Volumio software is a monthly paid service. But when you purchase a device like the Revo I previously reviewed and the Motivo today, you get the premium full application suite included. So you won't see any monthly charges, thankfully. Can you imagine buying a streamer, then paying for the OS that's required to even use it? That would really go over well. The Volumio software is generally considered as a great choice, especially for those in the DIY area, the people building the Raspberry Pi streamers. I myself have had a bit of mixed feelings on it in the past. I first came into contact with it on an iFi streamer that seemed to be plagued with stability problems and even just general usability while it was running. It left a bad taste in my mouth and I avoided using any of these for a pretty good amount of time. I was honestly kind of harsh in that review on that iFi product, and I think that's the last time they reached out to me to take on any more reviews. Oh well, it wasn't PlayFi bad, but it was kind of right on their heels. I later had the opportunity to try it again, but from Volumio itself on the Revo streamer, and that completely turned around my opinion on the operating system as a whole. I suspect other brands modify the OS around their hardware and may run into some limitations, versus Volumio itself with the Revo previously and the Motivo today, operating so much smoother. The implementation on the Motivo today just plain works. It's been stable. The hardware in the Motivo obviously seems to be selected around the ideal performance, and it's been getting frequent updates as well. So it's not all roses though. Although it's an audiophile focused capable streaming OS, it isn't as simple as firing up your average Stream Magic app or Blue OS. There's a bit more of a learning curve with this one. It's intuitive enough with a bit of tinkering, but just note this isn't something like unpackage your streamer, turn it on and go type of product. Expect to at least go through the menus a few times to get things down. As far as using it for streaming and its capabilities, Motivo supports all the major streaming services: Tidal, Tidal Connect, Qobuz, Spotify, Radio Paradise, and all the other file types. Rune Ready certification is expected to be coming soon. You know, it just takes a long time. It's a timely process to get that certification. Tidal Connect is a big one for myself because if I'm being completely honest, that's my preferred method of controlling the Motivo and even the Revo previously. I'm very familiar with the Tidal app, so basically I just set the Motivo up, configure all the settings, and then control everything I need from my phone or tablet, and that really provides a great experience. If you want to dive into Volumio itself and take advantage of all the great things it does offer, for one, you're going to get, all the streaming services beyond Tidal, obviously, but you also get an AI-powered DJ that very accurately will create you a personal radio station that brings in new and old, and that worked really well in my experiences with it. On to the connections. Generally, these are pretty simple. I just show you guys the back, and then I name off all the connections. But we definitely have a bit of an oddity on the Motivo. We'll get into that in a second here. Starting from the right, we have the power supply input. Typical wall wart. I didn't mess around with it. Others have found that the included power supply to be a very good match for this unit. Next, we have the two USBs. Think USB DAC, CD drive, SSD for an external library, and the other could go to something like a keyboard, mouse, smart remote, basically all just your, just all your accessories. And then we have the I2S over HDMI. This is going to go to compatible DACs. Typically, these are going to be found in more of the high-end DACs, if you haven't ran into that one before. And then there's an optical coax out for your typical, digital outs, could go to an external DAC. And then let's jump over the odd duck and go to the unbalanced outs. Nothing to note here beyond just normal usage. And finally, the somewhat odd balanced outputs that double as headphone outs. First of all, I would imagine this was done just because of space on the product. The part that gets complicated is the headphone outs use the same connection as the XLR analog outs. So anyone that is looking to use both simultaneously, they might be looking elsewhere. The balanced outputs do require a special cable, but it is included with the product, so no harm, no foul. Well, as long as you don't need to use both. I'm sure you noticed that we don't have any digital or analog inputs either, so keep that in mind with your system integrations. Wrapping up the connections, both the RCA and the XLR outputs can be set as fixed or variable, so you can either use the Motivo as a fixed volume output or a preamplifier using the volume control. Let's quickly go over the headphone performance here, because I'm sure a lot of you are going to end up having this at your desk. The headphone amp has enough power for anything not incredibly demanding. It's not a total powerhouse by any means, but you do get the option of higher low gain through this really sort of unique configuration with the connections that we just covered. My only guess here was more of a move to provide more functionality without making the product any bigger. It should be noted that while you're plugging these into a balanced output, the headphone amp is not a balanced configuration. I didn't feel like the headphone amp was quite up to the same level of performance as the rest of the unit. The Motivo is built to perform at streaming and really excel at it. And for headphones, it's good enough for most people and most pairings, but as I mentioned in the beginning, it's a premium device, so that's how I'm going to review it today. The internals appear to be a point of focus on this one, and it's appreciated because if you don't have a clean signal coming out of your analog or digital outputs, really, what's the point? This one is paired with an ESS 9038 DAC chip that they go into detail about. Apparently they have a customized or tailored connection that was co-developed with Amaranto Technologies, citing that every detail of the implementation has been tweaked to deliver the best performance. It features a main linear regulator for the analog section, bypassing the need for any type of new external power supply. Basically, it appears they have a number of dedicated regulators internally to keep everything low noise. I can get behind that. We often hear the benefits of an external power supply on streamers, and in some cases, I have noted improvements. But if it can just be taken care of straight away, let's save the coin. They do go a bit further discussing their collaboration with Amaranto for their custom USB bridge, but basically to keep this review moving, expect high performance when used as a streamer utilizing the internal DAC. It was enough for me. Will it be enough for you? Likely. And if not, simply use it as a transport and send that signal down the line to a DAC of your choosing. It features excellent reclocking, galvanic isolation utilizing Murata transformers. You get that I2S over HDMI, so really you should be covered from this standpoint. If using that I2S, make sure to go into the menu and select your DAC. It looks like they have a wide range covered, and it sounds like they update these pretty frequently. Finally, let's talk about the damn sound here. There was a lot of odds and ends to cover on this design, but we're finally here. Enough about touchscreens and odd connections. If you're shopping the Motivo, you're simply shopping for the best audio performance in my mind. Will it be the easiest streamer to use? No. Is Volumio as polished as others such as Eversolo, Weem, and Blue OS? No, it's really not in my opinion. Will it sound fantastic as is, no external DAC? Absolutely. This streamer, preamp, headphone amp, transport, has a bit of an identity crisis, maybe too many chefs in the kitchen on the design, but what they did get right was the actual audio experience you get while using the Motivo. I can't say if it's within the software or the DAC implementation, but the sound is big, textured, and sometimes outright bold. Yes, there is a flavor to it. I get a very realistic presentation from the music that comes across, for a casual listen as well as for critical listening. The treble isn't too pointed or top heavy like certain ESS DAC implementations. It's more polite than the sound coming across the DMP-A6, for example. It just sounds accurate without what I would call digital glare. In comparison to the Revo, I found the sound very similar. If I had to pick between the two, I would likely go the route of the Motivo, but as close as it was, it is a bit of a sharp price increase. If considering between the two, it has been noted that the Revo benefits from an external power supply while the Motivo does not. Keep that pricing in mind as it does bring these two much closer together. Also consider the additional connections on the Motivo. It's a bit of a sticker shock, but attempt to piece together a DIY solution that has all the same features and connections as the Motivo, and it's going to be very challenging. And that's not even taking into consideration, all the customizations within their implementation for sonic improvements. Yes, I totally get it. You can build a Raspberry Pi streamer for pretty cheap, but attempt to match up with all the same connections and offerings, plus all their customizations, and it's going to be a pretty big challenge. As for the value, I review a lot of budget streamers on this channel, and many of them are absolutely stunning at their price points, often excelling well beyond their price point expectations. This one doesn't fall into that category of shooting way above its price point, and that isn't uncommon once you get into the premium products. It often turns into more specifics, in many cases like, I want this particular feature or connection, or even goes the route of giving things up to get more of a singular focus like sound quality. I feel like the Motivo would have been better served chasing my final endpoint. Drop all the extras like the headphone amp, awkward XLRs, and unique slanted screen, and just put this in a traditional size box with an all-out focus on sound. Keep the touchscreen and everything else they did with the sound as it's a fantastic job, and just dazzle with simplicity. Everything else that I didn't cover yet, you can connect a simple USB CD drive and listen or copy your CDs, so that's a bonus. The Motivo has multi-room audio and allows you to cast your music to like Sonos or any Chromecast endpoints. And finally, the volume knob needs to come up as it's a bit different. It's sort of this really flat button that would have benefited from just being a standard knob, as it's a bit too thin for accurate usage. I think design won the battle over functionality in this case. The Motivo is a desktop-style product that excels in spaces beyond it sonically. My advice would be to ignore the obvious pull to have this close by and just control everything from the Volumio app on your phone or the streaming services like Tidal Connect. You'll lose out on some of the features having it on your rack, but at the same time, you're really going to enjoy the strong sonic performance it offers beyond the desk. Please throw a comment, like, even subscription my way, even if you're just saying hi. It helps to drive these videos out to a much wider audience. The bigger the audience, the more interesting gear I can get in and review. Take care. Let's talk soon. See ya.